substance or behaviour. And why do I do these videos? Well, simply in the first instance, some years back, I was asked, can you share experience, strength and hope to some people who cannot get to meetings? And this came out of being in a treatment centre environment in Soho in London. What a place to start my treatment, if you like, in the big bad world of sobriety. Soho was a real haunt for me in my drinking days, full of clubs, nightclubs, Ronnie Scott's, Stringfellows, the Hippodrome, other ones which are not so well known, but very sordid, I guess, in some ways. But they were times when I was out there drinking, and my substance was alcohol, my behaviour, to extremes of doing so much I couldn't stand still, and standing still and not being able to do anything. So where am I today? Just simply one day at a time, living one day at a time soberly, finding that life works immensely more in terms of understanding my emotional and spiritual condition. And my emotional condition is contingent on my life experiences and what is going on for me now. And my spiritual condition is being able to see the truth of now. So it's not that hard, and it's really about keeping it simple one day at a time. But the trouble is, as we engage in life again, in sobriety, life gets busy. So my life has been quite busy over the last few weeks, and I need to make sure I keep the balance in there somehow. But last night I went to a meeting of the Fellowship of AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, a place where I go simply to get experience, strength and hope, and wisdom to keep on living a sober life, one day at a time. So how hard is that? Well, in my drinking days, or when I was coming to the end of them, I could not see a way out of the addiction, and I never thought I would be an addict. But these days I welcome the fact that I have found a place of recovery, because I'm understanding life so much more, and what life can be from morning till night. So in the morning, I'm not sure who I might be, but by the end of the day, I've got a better idea of having been useful in some way. So life keeps on rolling along. And Fellowship of AA has helped me immensely just to keep things in the day. So what is AA? I share the Fellowship Statement of Intent, or the AA preamble here, simply because it explains what the Fellowship is there to do. And it's all about sobriety, and then having a life to live a day at a time. So here's the Statement of Intent. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution. It does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And when in that last sentence it says, our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety, that's simply it. And it's not about changing people's beliefs or understandings about what works for them. It's about helping people understand their beliefs and what works for them. So for me, fellowship is about uniqueness and authenticity of humans being human. And it's not about being special or different, or special and different. And the gift is that we start to learn that we need respect and value diversity. So whether we're somebody who ended up in the gutter like me, or somebody who runs an enterprise the size of, I don't know what, the United Kingdom, it doesn't matter. We're all in the same boat, learning to live soberly one day at a time. And the problem with sobriety is, if we try and extend it, or try and make it bigger than it is, bigger than the moment of now, we trip ourselves up, and often it's the very small things which get in the way, and we focus on the negative rather than the overall picture of life can be okay. We can cope with what is right now. And I share literature here from the Daily Reflections, which is this book. And it covers the 12 steps of action for the individual to change attitude and behaviour to daily life. And for today, January 19th, it says round-the-clock faith. And faith is a very personal thing. It's either faith in life, faith in human nature, faith in a power greater than ourselves, or faith that we can get some help and hope from other people. So here it goes. Round-the-clock faith. Faith has to work 24 hours a day, in and through us, or we perish. And we all know what it's like in those last drinking days. The essence of my spirituality, which is for me living in the moment of now, and my sobriety, rests on a round-the-clock faith in a higher power. I need to remember and rely on the God of my understanding, that is our own personal understanding of a higher power, as I pursue all my daily activities. How comforting for me is the concept that God works in and through people. So in other words, we can get the wisdom from other people. As I pause in my day, do I recall specific concrete examples of God's presence? Am I amazed and uplifted by the number of times this power is evident? I am overwhelmed with gratitude for my God's presence in my life of recovery. Without this omnipotent force in my every activity, I would again fall into the depths of my disease and death. And as we know, the problem with the disease is it doesn't kill us straight away, but it kills our emotional abilities. It either suppresses our feelings or exaggerates them to extremes. So we go to highs and lows, a bit like bipolar. And do you know what? That is probably exactly what it does, because we're changing the actual chemistry of our physiology and how our brain is working. So alcohol is a poison, and it changes our mood. It makes us feel differently. So it's very easy when we're under pressure to ask ourselves, what do we prefer? Do we prefer the reality of what is, so we can sort it out? Or do we prefer the numbing and oblivion that we have always chased when drinking, or taking any other substance, or using work or relationships or behaviour to try and fix this horrible feeling that we have? And it's normally depression, anxiety, panic. And I was just dipping into something which I've just got. It's an enormous book. It's called the Life Recovery Bible, and I have never really read the Bible, so this is a bit of a new one for me. But it incorporates the 12 steps of the program, and it talks about step 1. Now here is the irony. I opened it this morning, and it started, step 1, hope amidst suffering, and it says this: we admitted that we were powerless over our problems, that our lives have become unmanageable. There are times when we are so confused and overwhelmed by the pain in our life that we wish we could die. No matter what we do, we are powerless to change things for the better. The weight of the pain and sadness seems too heavy to bear. We can't see why our heart doesn't just break and allow death to free us. What a place to start in a new book. And I think I'll be looking at that book for quite a while, probably the rest of my life. I bought an expensive copy so it won't fall to pieces. And I don't know what my beliefs are, but I do understand, for me, that God is truth, God is love, and God works through people. And there's a bit of wisdom of where I was, that abject misery of not being able to stop harming myself, self-harm. So through fellowship, I'm learning always how these 12 steps of action to change my attitude and behaviour can work. So, as I say the Serenity Prayer at the end of these videos, to the God of your understanding, or just simply good conscience, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference is, for me, just for today. And thanks to comments made on my videos in recent days. It's very helpful to me. And life has been tough over the last week or so, for very obvious reasons. I'm back in a single status again, and I'm not complaining, I'm just saying what it is, single status. And it's left a gap inside me, a gap of or a space which is easy to fill often with things which might seem quite trivial, or looking for a fix to fix the way I feel. And I don't feel like fixing today. And just a reminder, my videos are all about recovery from addiction to substance and behaviour. And my substance was alcohol, my behaviour was trying to be perfect, and never so, because I was always too busy doing something new. And when we're moving on to new horizons or vistas, we can be very tempted to get caught up in the trap of doing more and more and more. And the trouble with doing more and more and more is we don't get good at doing one thing well. And the one thing I need to keep doing well is sobriety. And I was thinking about it this morning, or my mind was going all over the place actually, about phoning people I shouldn't phone, trying to find out if somebody's alright when it's none of my business. All those sorts of things, because I do have genuine concern and love. And that can be very, very hard. It's hard on me. It's probably even harder to keep this silence going. But sometimes we have to, because it's just the way life is. So, the other things which were occurring to me this morning were about life sentence. I think I'll call this video Life Sentence. It's a life sentence one day at a time for me in recovery. And the reason why is simply because I've learned how to use the 12-step program of Alcoholics Anonymous, which is just a fellowship. It's not an organisation, it's just a fellowship of people keeping in recovery one day at a time. And there's only one qualification, really, if we really needed it. It's a desire to stop drinking. Just a desire to stop drinking on a daily basis. And as we live on a one-day program, a life sentence is one day long. It also means we can change our mind, change our attitude, and change our behaviour to meet the conditions we face on any particular day. And yesterday was a really good day. I had lunch with family. I rarely go out, and I didn't have to go far. I live at the back of a restaurant called By Bendon, and it's a very nice venue. And I was invited to lunch by my sister and my mum, and we had a good meal, and we were there for 3 hours and had a lot of talks about now and the future. People are changing all the time, and for me, I need to be aware of what I deal with on a daily basis. So it's recovery, type 1 diabetes, and clinical depression. And the diabetes and the clinical depression are quite linked, or interlinked, but also it's linked with, I suppose, an over-excess of alcohol over the years. Although my system has righted itself in early recovery, and I was free of the other conditions, they came back with a vengeance, just as they do. So, what else helps me? The daily recovery, daily reflections, an AA fellowship book, and as Bill sees it, another AA fellowship book, and they have daily readings which are helpful to me. And they talk about God. And each and every person on the planet has their understanding of God. So there's probably 6.5, 7 billion people on the planet, and they all have a definition of God which suits them. And that's the gift. We all have a definition which suits us. And my understanding of God is an appeal to good conscience. It's not a reverie that God is going to save me from something. It's actually an acceptance of life on life's terms. Nature and Providence has given me a life, and I happen to live where I live. And I happen to be as I am today. And the gift of that is in good conscience to understand what I can and cannot do. And I'm powerless over certain things. Powerless over my addiction. If I go back to it, life will get unmanageable. I'm also powerless mostly over people, places and things. But in that are choices and influences in life. And that's what I get back on a daily basis. An influence on my life comes, from these books. So when I talk of God in these books, it's the God of your understanding, not mine. And your God and your understanding is just as good as mine. For me, God is truth, God is love, and God works through people. So it's not a man on a fluffy white cloud with a long beard. It's probably the collective good conscience of humanity as it is today. So January 19th, round the clock faith. Faith has to work 24 hours a day, and in and through us, or we perish. The essence of my spirituality and my sobriety rests on the round-the-clock faith in a higher power. I need to remember and rely on the God of my understanding as I pursue all of my daily activities. How comforting for me is the concept that God works in and through people. As I pause in my day, do I recall specific concrete examples of God's presence? Am I amazed and uplifted by the number of times this power is evident? Am I overwhelmed with gratitude for my God's presence in my life of recovery? Without this omnipotent force in my activity, I would again fall into the depths of my disease and death. And I guess, really, if I were to fall into the depths of my disease and death, I would end up dead very quickly, given the extra problems I have on top of dealing with my alcoholism, being in recovery one day only. And the omnipotent force for me, which is there in every activity, is the good conscience of mankind. Truth and love, and all these things work through people. So if we look at the actual world as it is, most people work to the good of life and the bad of life. And even when we find people who are very irritable and discontented on a daily basis, we can actually say, well, they're doing their best. And we can connect with them in the best way we can at the moment. Or we can disconnect because we need to, because they don't want us and don't need us. So it is very valuable to know that God does work in mysterious ways, if we allow ourselves the humility to be no bigger or smaller than anybody else, that we're just equal sized on this planet, no matter what anybody else may think. And as Bill sees it, I suspect that the traditional understanding of God is not quite where I am, but that doesn't matter. It's just what is right for me at the moment. And don't forget, life changes us daily, and so do we change our ideas, thoughts, feelings. But faith is integral to making this program work. Faith in the good of good living. And as Bill sees it, page 2, or the second reading, in God's hands. When we look back, we realise that things which came to us when we put ourselves in God's hands were better than anything we could have planned. And the planning for me would be to be in control of. And the trouble is, if we're in control of things, we're also a prisoner of what we're trying to control. So it's a two-edged sword. We can take people prisoners, but the jailer is as much a prisoner of that environment too. It goes on to say, my depression deepened unbearably, and finally it seemed to me as though I were at the very bottom of the pit, rock bottom. For the moment, the last vestige of my proud obstinacy was crushed. All at once I find myself crying out, if there is a God, let him show himself. I am ready to do anything, anything. Suddenly the gloom lit up with a great white light. It seemed to me in the mind's eye that I was on a mountain, and that a wind not of air but of spirit was blowing. And then it burst upon me that I was a free man. Slowly the ecstasy subsided. I lay on the bed, but now for a time I was in another world, a new world of consciousness. All about me and through me there was a wonderful feeling of presence. And I thought to myself, so this is the God of the preachers. And for me, I haven't found that one yet. And, you know, at the meeting I was at last night, the person giving the chair, and one or two other people said something which was quite valuable to me, because it's something I'd missed too. They said they'd missed the first spiritual awakening they had ever had in their lives. And it was simply this. The simple thing that we all overlooked was, at some stage where we had that moment of clarity around how to get sober, it was, I cannot do this on my own. I cannot do this journey on my own. And that was the one thing I nearly forgot, that I actually admitted to myself and to God, of whatever understanding I have or have had, that I cannot do this on my own. And the greatest gift of recovery is we work together to stay sober, just for one day. It's just for one day, a life sentence long, just one day. My time is up, and more on.